Well, hello there. Welcome into HuPAC Talk. Before beginning, I'd like to express my congratulations to Carlos Alcaraz, who in a marathon of a match in the final of the French Open at Roland Garros yesterday, dispatched Jannik Sinner in 5 sets after dropping the first 2 sets. The match ran for, I think, just a shade under 5.5 hours. It was the second longest match, I believe, in Open history. And I really don't have words to describe the spectacle of seeing this comeback transpire. Because what happened essentially is after winning the first 2 sets, Sinner won the first 2 sets, Alcaraz came back and won the third. I didn't really see him dropping a final in 3 sets, given how talented he is. But then in the 4th set, Sinner actually went up 5-3 and held a 40-love advantage and essentially had a championship match point 3 times in a row. Alcaraz withstood every single time to not only win that game, but finally end up winning the set on a tiebreak. And then in the 5th set, that also went to a tiebreak, and Alcaraz took that one relatively easily, 10 points to 2. But just an insane level of resilience shown there by Alcaraz. I personally didn't really have a dog in the fight. I was kind of rooting for Sinner just for the reason that I kind of appreciated his rather more stoic demeanor. But the reality is he kind of choked, holding that 40-love advantage, needing only a point to win the French Open title. Alcaraz is now 5-0 in major Open finals in his young career, so major props to him for that. Another reason I was maybe rooting for Sinner a bit is because the entire gallery appeared to be behind Alcaraz, and in instances of those sorts, I tend to root for the person who is less popular. So pretty crazy stuff. I remember checking in, I was like, surely this match is over. I had been watching, and then Alcaraz actually won the 4th set. After he won the 4th set, I said, there's no way Sinner is winning this next set. I think he's only won 1 match after that's gone to 5 sets in his career. So despite being the #1 ranked player in the world, even then I was like, okay, surely Alcaraz is going to run away with this. Now, Sinner did make it very interesting in the 5th set, obviously sending it to a tiebreak. He actually held a 6-5 lead at one point, but Alcaraz was able to tie it up, send it to the tiebreak, and finally win it there. So pretty impressive stuff there from the young Spaniard. All right, moving on to the NBA Finals, which are now tied at 1 game apiece after the Thunder defeated the Pacers by 16 last night. The Thunder came out in this one, and they put their foot down, and they held it down for the entirety of the game, evening the series up as it heads to Indianapolis for Game 3 on Wednesday. A couple notes from the first 2 games of the series. In both games, it's obvious that the Thunder ran out to a big lead. It's just that in Game 1, they let their guard down. And Indiana, like a thief in the night, swooped in and pounced. And this is something they've done in every single game in the series so far. So OKC is getting a little bit of the same attention that some of the less fortunate Eastern Conference teams dealt with as well. Now, what does this mean for OKC going to Indianapolis? They've got to steal one of these games to regain home court advantage. I think they're fully capable of doing that, but I don't see them really stealing more than 1 game. I see this series probably being tied at 2, heading back to OKC, which is ideal for the Thunder. But I think one of the discouraging things for the Thunder, despite how talented they are, is that in every single game versus Indiana that any team has played in these playoffs, the only times that Indiana has lost, aside from a rather inexplicable 20-point comeback from the Knicks in their series in the conference finals, is that in every single game where Indiana's jumped out to a lead, aside from that comeback, they've never relinquished it. And in some of their other games where they've come back, it doesn't really matter how big the lead is. If there is even the slightest opening, if the door is left even a crack open, Indiana will sneak through it and they will end you. It's as simple as that. OKC found that out the hard way in game 1. What does this mean going forward? It means that for OKC to win the series, they will have to keep their foot on Indiana's throat for at least 4 games. Because Indiana has a habit, even if there is a talent deficit, of just rising up and pouncing when you don't expect it. So, just something to keep in mind here. Another thing that I think is somewhat discouraging for the Thunder is that Indiana has fallen behind in both games in OKC. I don't see them doing that in both games in Indy. It's probably not going to happen. And until they lose a close game, I don't really see them losing a game in which the deficit is less than 10 points. To beat these Pacers, you've got to dominate them from start to finish. I see the Thunder figuring some things out. I think Mark Daigneault is an elite coach, but I also think Rick Carlisle is no slouch himself when it comes to adapting to the opposition. The Thunder played a ferocious brand of defense in both games, forcing 20 turnovers in the first half of game 1 wasn't enough to get it done. In game 2, there were fewer turnovers forced. Both teams played at a frenetic pace, and OKC managed to make more shots than Indiana, actually going 29 of 33 from the free throw line. So a pretty elite clip there. That's 10 more than Indy made. That's the majority of the deficit separating those two teams. So going into game 3, Carlisle's going to have some tricks up his sleeve, I have no doubt. The Indy crowd's going to be fired up, and I very much expect Indy to take game 3 most likely. And if not that, then definitely game 4. This series will likely be tied 2-2, heading back to game 5 in OKC. Who knows, though? You never can tell. OKC is going to have to figure some things out in terms of dealing with a Rocky Road environment. I think they're fully capable of that. They did it in Denver, and they did it in Minnesota. So we'll see what happens there. All right. Not a ton of analysis there. I'm, once again, not one equipped to do that. But I really wanted to cut that segment short just because I wanted to move on to our popular segment,
Burning Questions with HuPAC.
All right, we've got a couple of interesting questions today. The first of which is, what is your relationship with ChatGPT like? And what's your favorite superhero movie? All right, so I think my relationship with ChatGPT can be summed up in one word: deteriorating. I used to have a good relationship with ChatGPT. It would help me out with a number of questions regarding food and wine pairings or esoteric quarrels of musical philosophy from the mid-18th century. And then about a couple weeks ago, out of nowhere, it just roasted the living crap out of me. And I didn't appreciate that. And this kind of combined with some of my musings on a few of the more dystopian aspects of treating an AI machine like a human being have left me in a state where I can truthfully say that my relationship with ChatGPT at this moment is very much on the outs. Regarding my favorite superhero movie, I actually watched The Incredibles 2 a couple weeks ago, so that was pretty neat. Aside from that, I haven't seen too much from the Marvel or DC kind of universe or that side of things. I will say that I watched one of the shows on Amazon Prime Video when it first started, whenever that was, and it ran for 2 seasons, and it was called, bear with me here, it was called The Tick, whose unimpressive and absurd name notwithstanding, I still found to be a very entertaining and interesting series.
Come on!
Metal Fiend.
Stand back, citizen.
So, vending menace, we meet again.
Jiggle thingy.
Harmless bandit.
Empty your bladder of that bitter black urine men call coffee! It has its price, and that price has been paid! Java Devil, you are now my bitch.
It had its repugnant moments, no doubt. Ultimately, this was a series that I think gave me the full picture of what it means to be a superhero movie. And honestly, at this juncture, I can't say I have any major desire to see superhero movies going forward. Though I will say I saw the ads for the new Superman movie coming up. Don't know if I'm going to watch it. Probably not, but you know, if I do watch it, I'll let you know. All right, our next question is an interesting one. It is asking me, what's your creative process like? And if you had to replace your hands with any two household items, what would you pick? Okay, so regarding my creative process, I can't say I have one that I stick with sort of across the board. My ideas often come to me when I'm just doing, you know, the things I do over the course of any given day. But I have found that the optimal setting for me to have my best ideas often comes when I am in a dark place, basically where it's either night and the lights are turned off or the blinds are closed and no lights are turned on. And not just the dark setting though, but also preferably in a shower where the temperature of the water is very cold. A less effective but still decent substitute for this is sitting in a dark room while sipping a glass of very cold water. There's just something about the cold water that gets your synapses all fired up, and this kind of combined with the dark room, which I think cuts out a lot of visual distractions, creates an environment which I have some of my most potent insights. Regarding replacing my hands with any two household items, this is something I've never thought about, but I would say that there are a couple of levels I would like to look at. The first is the more aesthetic or symbolic level, and I think on that level, I think one hand would have to be a scissors, which has a number of functional uses, yes, but it's not because of that, but rather because I really like Edward Scissorhands that I would pick it. My other hand would be a more symbolic, deal, because I would have on that hand a broom to sort of symbolize my time, as you well know, my time cleaning up the streets, which I did for a few years there. But there's that level. And then moving on to the more functional level, as you know, my two great loves are eating and drinking. So in one hand, I would replace with a spork. And in the other hand, I would replace with some kind of steel koozie that would hold, you know, any bottles or cans of fluids that you need to get you through your week. I think that the spork is ingenious, not only because it allows you to prong food, but also to scoop food. So it's a nice little 2-for-1 deal. All right, so that's all for burning questions. Another great segment there. Before concluding this rather painful and disjointed episode, I would like to point out this interesting little factoid I saw over here to my left, which showed me that the price per pound of a number of cheeses is comparable to that of a number of major vehicles in the US, some of which are luxury vehicles. So as you can see, a Porsche, Roquefort, and Comte all ranked higher than the Mercedes-Benz S-Class in price per pound. So just keep that in mind next time you're buying a hunk of cultured dairy from your local cheesemonger. All right, so that's all I've got for episode 8 of HuPAC Talk. Once again, thrilled to be here with you all. Thanks for hanging in there today. And I will be back with episode 9 sometime later this week. Thank you.